UIC.
Freedom the people of need.
Hell yeah.
Freedom the people of need. Yeah, yeah. Freedom the people of want. Freedom the people of need. Yeah, yeah. Freedom the people of want. Freedom the people of need. Yeah, yeah. Freedom the people of want. Freedom the people of need. Yeah,
Yeah. Real man a road. Now bow wolf in a tree grand a road. Now bow down to no demon a road. UIC when you see man a road, me say yeah. Real man a road. Now bow wolf in a tree grand a road. Now bow down to no demon a road. UIC when you see man a road. Ready for broke every chain. That when you free up the people, levitate. Jamaica member, you ever great. I feel burn up the fire upon every snake. Me give thanks in every way. God still a look down once see we safe. I see run the road long time. GLP and PMP I sell we out. Till I do the test even though we know the end result. If them coulda kill with them catch we and hang we know. No force no coercion, me freedom in a step. No one fi rob we and kill we and feel them I go make it out. You know see the leeches, you know see the hands of the devil when him sleep with. You know see the leeches, you know see the hands of the devil when him sleep with. Yeah.
Hi, hello, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of UIC Liberty TV. This is Joseph Patterson, President. We started off very nicely and very quickly we had some technical difficulties, so sorry about that. But welcome to another edition, and we're looking forward to talking about tonight's topic, which is bombing, another form of scamming. Recently, the government proudly announced that it's going to be drawing down on what Windalco's $117 million environmental performance bond, following Rio Cobre contamination and so-called fish kill. The question is, will this correct the problem? I don't think it will. It will actually only release more money for the government to engage in corruption and theft, while the people of Jamaica will still suffer the consequences of Windalco's action. The UIC solution, as most of you know, is much better. We must stop the mining now, and we must move to organic farming. I will explain why we need to move from mining to farming in this episode of UIC Liberty TV Live. Tonight, I hope the special guest, who some of you don't know yet, but he's the Vice President of the UIC for the Middlesex County. His name is Donovan Moore. So he's going to join me in this discussion on the topic of bauxite mining in Jamaica. But let me just welcome all of you who are online. Good to see you on. Godfrey, Lion Rule, JMH, Alan Scott. Hopefully you will enjoy tonight's program, but more importantly, that you'll be moved to action, because we don't just do these programs for entertainment, we do them for us to make sure and we can take a very responsible position on them. So let's get some key facts out of the way. Bauxite mining pollutes the air, it pollutes the water, it pollutes the soil. Therefore, it directly affects the environment. The life and the livelihood of ordinary Jamaicans are impacted by bauxite mining. The substances produced during the bauxite mining process includes dust, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, as well as waste that will sooner or later end up directly into our waterways and rivers, killing biodiversity, including beneficial insects, plants, fish, animals, and humans. My friends, this is not a simple matter. In fact, if we understood the severity and danger of this industry, every single Jamaican would be in the streets right now demanding that the government immediately cease and desist from allowing any form of bauxite extraction and processing in this country. Why? Well, it's very important to realize that Jamaica is a small island. We don't have a lot of land to waste. In fact, every inch of our lands are very important to us and should be preserved. There have been numerous spills over the years, including 2019, 2021, and now 2022. But even without the spills, the daily poisoning of our environment and people should be a major concern that moves us to action now. In fact, a careful analysis will show you that bauxite mining is a legalized form of scamming carried out by the two parties as our government, where they colluded with foreign powers to deceive us out of our land, out of our natural wealth, and even out of our health, with the promise of a financial benefit we will actually never see. All we will receive, all we will get from all of this processing is loss of our land, loss of our water, loss of our income, and ultimately loss of our life. We're cutting short the benefit of Jamaica to future generations, even as we kill present Jamaicans with this very dangerous form of industry. Now, nothing is wrong with bauxite mining going on in very large countries, which have a large amount of land and a large amount of ability to, remediate the results of those extractions. But Jamaica certainly cannot afford to engage in this. And tonight I'm going to show you why. But before I get into the details, I want to give Mr. Moore a chance and introduce himself so you know who he is. And then we're going to just get into it because we have a short amount of time to get through a lot of details tonight. So once again, good night to all of you online, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us. And I hope you'll continue to like, comment, subscribe, and of course, share. Now, there's something very important. I got a message today from Facebook that they are extending their ban on the UIC by limiting how much you see of our content. So to overcome that, you need to make sure you, your friends and families like and share and comment as much as possible so that we can overcome the restrictions from the algorithm. But let me welcome Mr. Moore. Good evening, Mr. Moore. Welcome. How are you?
Good evening, Sir Patterson, and thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be a part of this presentation to share with you and the Jamaican people about considerations for the bauxite industry and to assess whether the cost, the impact of such an undertaking measures up to the benefits that we have extracted and that we are extracting, however little, in the current time. It is of a certain that the process does produce a lot of byproducts, and many of these are not necessarily good for the environment. I heard you mention the carbon footprints, which is increased as a consequence of the smelting process at the latter stage, especially of the extraction of the aluminum metal from the oxide itself. And of note, as I was discussing and sharing with you, based on the process itself. Oh, by the way, I should have introduced myself a little bit more, right? My name is Donovan Murph, and I'm also currently serving as the Vice President for the County of Middlesex. I'm very excited about this great opportunity to be of service, not just to the UIC, but to the entire Jamaica, because I believe that Jamaica is at a pivotal point where with critical thought, we can make steps to transform and improve Jamaica, and the UIC is that political catalyst that is going to bring about that change. Having said that, back to the...
Yeah, well, hold on, Donovan, hold on. That's a mouthful. So thank you so much for introducing yourself.
Right.
And before we get into more of the detail, I want our viewers now to see a small video that will put some of what we're going to discuss into context. So let's hold our horses for a little bit and see what we can learn from this video, which I'm going to share with you all right now. So let's have a look at that. and then we'll come back in.
Since discovering Jamaica, it's the largest non-service in Jamaica, and in fact, it is the third largest exchange earner behind remittances and tourism. Amidst this seeming success are a myriad of complaints from communities adjacent to the sites, mostly based on, and for example, decrease in air quality, pollution, water contamination, just to name a few, and recently a possible threat to the cockpit country. This is episode of my New Developments in Jamaica series, and in today's video I will be tracking the progress of bauxite mining in Jamaica throughout the years based on news articles and other resources. I will end the video with the most recent developments and my thoughts. If you enjoy these types of videos, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and leave a comment. The word bauxite is derived from the name of the French village Les Bords de Provence, where bauxite was first discovered in 1821 by geologist Pierre Berthier. In 1827 and again in 1869, geologists noted its presence right here in Jamaica, evidenced by the red ferruginous earth. They, however, did not realize its importance, not yet, at least. You see, bauxite and aluminum are inextricably. Aluminum is made through an extensive process of refining the bauxite ore to release aluminum oxide, otherwise known as alumina, which then goes through a heating and melting process called smelting to extract pure aluminum. A significant portion of Jamaica's bauxite goes to the refinery and is turned into alumina and then exported. The remainder is exported as is, unrefined. Because aluminum is strong yet lightweight and malleable, conductive, resistant to corrosion, and most importantly, recyclable, just to name a few of its properties, it has been used in the production of a wide range of things. Aluminum is used in the construction and transportation industries, in electrical, and the manufacturing of consumer goods. In World War II, there was increased demand for aluminum. So much British even resorted to using utensils collected from households to make aircrafts. But even with this increase in demand, bauxite was not exported to be used in the war. Nevertheless, all of three companies from North America, namely Alcan, Kaiser, and Reynolds, came to Jamaica for this red. Jamaica's first shipment of bauxite was executed by Reynolds Jamaica Mines on June 5, 1952. That's a few months short of 70 years ago. Within 5 years, Jamaica would rise above every other bauxite producing country to become the top producer of bauxite in the world, producing almost 5 million tons. This apparent success led Alcan to open another refinery at Ewaton, St. Catherine in 1959, its second in Jamaica. By 1961, Alcoa began bauxite mining in Jamaica, making it the fourth time. The increase in bauxite production also led to an increase in the production of alumina, with both of Alcan's refineries producing an excess of 1 million tons annually. 1969 saw Kaiser, Reynolds, and Anaconda, through Alpart, opening a new plant at Nain, St. Elizabeth. Jamaica's fourth alumina plant was built at Magotty, St. Elizabeth, by Revere Copper and Brass in 1971. In that same year, Jamaica would lose its position as top box in the world to Australia. In 1973, Jamaica's refinery was opened in Clarendon by Alcoa. But before the start of the next decade, West African country Guinea would also surpass Jamaica in the production of bauxite. Over the years, Brazil, China, and India would would eventually. As recent as 2018, the producers of bauxite were Australia, China, Guinea, Brazil, and India in that order. Jamaica coming in sixth place. When it came to alumina production, we were also ranked sixth place. I was unable to get up-to-date information on this, unfortunately. Presently, bauxite mining takes place in the parishes of St. Anne, St. Catherine, Manchester, and Clarendon. According to the Jamaica Bauxite Institute, these are the bauxite and alumina companies operating in Jamaica. Noranda Jamaica Bauxite Partners 2, which was originally known as Kaiser Jamaica Bauxite Company. The government of Jamaica owns 51% of it. They currently have a permit from the government to continue mining bauxite in Jamaica until 2030. Their mining operation is located in St. Anne. However, a significant amount of what is mined is shipped to their refinery located in Louisiana, where it is turned into alumina. In 2019, Noranda released a public statement to clear up certain misconceptions about it conducting mining operations in the country protected area, CCPA. In this 2020 article, it was reported that Noranda Jamaica Bauxite is rebranding with a new name, Discovery Bauxite, and its U.S. operation would now be Atlantic Alumina. The rebranding will be done in stages. In 2022, there are still complaints regarding Noranda's mining close to the cockpit country, with some arguing that the area being mined is within what has always been known as the cockpit country. More on that and on the cockpit country later. There are currently fires in Jamaica, namely Alpart, Jamalco, and Windalco. The government of Jamaica has 45% in.
I'm no author of literally thousands of books on every single month. And you know the crazy thing? I didn't write these.
Over the years, Alcoa Minerals of Jamaica, in a sense, became Jamalco. According to their website, Jamalco is a joint venture between Noble Group and Clarendon Alumina Production, CAP, with a focus on bauxite mining and alumina production. The Noble Group acquired Alcoa in 2014, and CAP is owned by the government of Jamaica, as I alluded to earlier. Jamalco's alumina refinery plant is located in Clarendon. Site mining sites are located in South Manchester, on the Mount Oliphant Plateau, and in Harmons Valley. On August 2022-2021, a fire broke out at their Clarendon refinery, leading to operations being suspended. In this March 2022 article, it was reported that operations are expected to resume by June 2022, and that the plant will be reconstructed in 3 phases. In 2016, the Chinese company Gisco took over Alpart and reopened their refinery in 2017. This is after it was closed in 2009 because of the worldwide financial crisis. 2 years after reopening, they closed once more to do some upgrades. The March 6, 2022 Observer article, Gisco Alpart wants to mine more land in St. Elizabeth, reported that the company's plan to modernize their main plant was rescheduled because of the present world crisis. However, since then, they have made adjustments to the plan and are now in conversations with the government of Jamaica to locate potential bauxite mining opportunities. Their eyes are currently set on 700 acres of land in the Essex Valley. Now on to Windalco. West Indies Alumina Company, Windalco, is owned by Rusal. According to their website, they own Uriton and Kirkvine alumina refineries, bauxite mines, Esquivel shipping port, and farms in Manchester and St. Anne. In 2009, operations ceased at both Kirkvine and Uriton Works, with Uriton Works reopening in 2010. In this March 2022, Windalco workers worried. It is workers are uncertain of what will happen as a result of the new sanctions placed on Russian oligarch Deripaska, who is the head of Rusal. United Company Rusal has headquarters in Russia and was founded by Deripat. At this point, I want to segue into the discussion about the cockpit country. Where is the cockpit country? The hilly interior of Jamaica is called the cockpit country. It is characterized by hills and valleys. The area has a lot of limestone, and as it rains and the water flows, the limestone erodes to create the distinctive pits of the cockpit country. It is home to rivers, caves, and the maroon town of Accompong in the parish of St. Elizabeth. In the 18th century, the cockpit country became a refuge for the ex-slaves as they escaped the colonizers. Its terrain and seclusion makes it the most rich and diverse ecosystem in Jamaica. In addition, 40% fresh water comes from cockpit country. However, its exact location has been disputed for some time now. There seems to be many interpretations as to where the boundaries lie, with some having it only in one parish, while others having across up to 6 parishes. It is this lack of consensus that made where not to mine difficult. As such, the government of Jamaica decided to boundaries and designate a protected area, something that should have been done a long time ago. In 2017, Prime Minister Holness announced the chosen boundary for the cockpit country and the Cockpit Country Protected Area, CCPA, which includes approximately 74,726 hectares, comprising of forest reserves and important ecological and hydrological features and cultural and heritage sites, though this map shows that some of those sites were left out of the protected area. In this article, Cockpit Country, Kimon Thompson reported that Doctors Dale Weber and Claudel Noel of the University of the West Indies had recommended in their technical report published in 2014 that the official boundary for the Cockpit Country should be comprised of a core, a transition zone, and an outer bound. This was after they hosted many town meetings and public consultations on behalf of the government. The purpose of these distinctions, I suppose, is to have an extensive buffer zone to protect the area's flora, fauna, and water. In my research, I came across an article on the Mona Geoinformatics website written by Dr. Paris Luai Jr., whose proposed boundary, which was completed as part of his PhD in 2005, was recognized by the cabinet as the boundary for the cockpit country. In the article he wrote, I quote, "My boundary of the cockpit country was one of the outcomes of my PhD thesis, which focused on the diagnostic properties of cockpit karst, that is, defining what is and what isn't cockpit karst, as the type area of stands to reason that the very definite country is identifying which areas are continuous cockpit karst and which areas are not, the latter not being included within the cockpit country." Karst is basically what I mentioned earlier when describing how the pits in the cockpit country were created. Here is a definition: landscape underlain by limestone, which has been eroded by dissolution, producing ridges, towers, fissures, sinkholes, and other characteristic landforms. So, based on my understanding of what he's saying, the name cockpit country is in reference to a particular type of landscape characterized by the features mentioned above and take into account such areas. But there are also other ways of defining what constitutes the cockpit country. For example, factoring into account what has historically been considered as the cockpit country by people living in and around the area. In addition, any defining of the cockpit boundaries must include any area that has important flora, fauna, and water that should be protected whether or not the area has cockpit karst. Note that of all the proposed boundaries to the cockpit country, it is the one that has the smallest that the government chose to recognize. Of course, an environmental EIA needed to be done in order for NEPA to decide whether or not to grant a license to mine in the special mining lease SML 73. They ended up rejecting the assessment all of 4 times before accepting the final assessment. The important parts highlighted in the final EIA that within SML 173, no area with water above ground and any water underground is all of 100 meters below the surface, and they will be digging that deep. Another important part of the landscape are caves and sinkholes, which actually carry underground, and according to their findings, almost all of those caves will not be mined. So apparently a few will be mined. Their conclusion is that it is highly unlikely that the underground water will be contaminated. The report also lists biological impacting the different species in the area, the socioeconomic environment, such as the types of communities close by and how they feel about box mining taking place nearby. It also lists the impacts and, of course, mitigation. The report about the potential financial benefits the lease was to be granted, with earning potential estimated at US $50 million. Is this after operational costs, the cost to mitigate against any negative impacts? Is this an objective analysis? And does it take into account not only the financial benefits, but weigh them against the costs to the environment and the people vicinity of these sites? There are so many different sides to this that it would require a whole video by itself. I implore you.
So the question is, do you believe that they would do a proper analysis and protect the interest of the Jamaican people in terms of regulations, in terms of ensuring that our water table or groundwater is not impacted? What do you think? Let me hear what the Vice President has to say. Mr. Moore, what do you think? Do you think that the government can be trusted to protect us? Oh, you're muted.
So sorry about that. I was muted. I was saying, Sir Patterson and listeners, I am not thoroughly convinced, based on the track record of the government, that they would be prepared to represent the interests of the country in regards to protecting the watershed and the underground water systems. I noticed that in the presentation, the presenter referred to a study that was done by a PhD candidate, in which a study was done and it was said to be highly unlikely. Now, if we understand how these terms are used, highly unlikely does not imply impossible. So for something as critical as our watersheds, for something as critical as our underground water system, the question that we need to ask is it worth the risk? Would it be worth the risk to facilitate mining in these areas and the resulting environmental impact may damage our ecosystem, may affect our water supply? Is it worth it in the long run? My conclusion is that it is not.
Absolutely not. And when you're talking about an area that contributes 40% of our water supply, one has to be very, very concerned about that. But I want to point out a few things I've observed in preparing for this presentation tonight. If you look at the history, the young lady talked about 1827 to today, 2022. I saw a few things. Bauxite mining started in Jamaica under the JLP government in 1952. As they bowed to the Americans, they gave the Americans a cheap source of bauxite. That's why Jamaica was number one. So during those early years, Jamaica was the leading producer of bauxite in the world, which meant they were extracting at an amazingly fast pace. And rightly so.
As I recall, I questioned whether it was a matter of what I would say an intellectual challenge by our leaders, or whether it was a matter of ignorance. I mean,
but hold on, Donovan. What I want to point out here is this: we were very close to the American in terms of geography. So bauxite is elsewhere in the world, but Jamaica was strategically located just off the shores of Miami, very close to Louisiana in terms of shipment point. So strategically, it made sense for them to come to Jamaica. Now, where we failed is that we didn't have any strategy. We didn't see that strategically it's in our best interest to preserve our land. So for them, it was strategic to come and extract our bauxite and destroy our lands and destroy our water and destroy our ecology. That's strategic for them. But for us, we did not see the importance of being strategic in saying, wait a minute, Jamaica is only yay big. Our country is dependent entirely on how much we use our land to be able to feed ourselves, to provide the kind of water that we need, and to be able to provide an attractive environment for tourists should they decide to come to Jamaica. Because those are some of our, what do you call them now, economic advantage or strategic advantage. But we did not do that. But I wanted to make sure people understand that the JLP government was the first one to enter into this. And here, I'm going to show you a link. Now, we were the top bauxite producers, producing 5 million tons. What does 5 million tons of bauxite mean, Donovan, in terms of our land? What are we giving away here?
It's a significant amount because, all right, so interestingly, there's a ratio between the amount of aluminum that is produced, a direct relation between the quantity of aluminum that is produced and the amount of bauxite that is extracted. I think it's a ratio of almost 2 to 1. And and then that's why I was going to the point of, let us say hypothetically that, we didn't understand or we weren't au fait enough or cognizant enough to think about the impact of what we were doing. The cost at which this bauxite was offered is something that begs a lot of questions as to whether we were apparently very ignorant or intellectually challenged. That's the point I was making. Because when we look at what we actually offered this product for, right? Maybe we thought that we were giving away dirt. Maybe we didn't know that the players external had an interest in extracting something from. I don't know.
Here's what I think, Donovan. I think if somebody comes and says to you that they want to set up a massive factory in your country to extract an asset from your country, it should spark you to think. Anybody with any sense at all, it should cause you to say, hold on a second. That's a great idea. I thank you for bringing this to our attention. Let me now go and do my homework and see what's going on here before I sign on the dotted line. So clearly, but I'm going to show you why they didn't worry about it. Because remember, they're simply disposing of land that doesn't belong to them. The government of Jamaica doesn't own this land. The land belongs to the people of Jamaica. But they have never, from slavery until now, they have never given the people of Jamaica their land. So the land was stolen from the people by the colonial masters. And the government that is supposed to represent the people have continued to ensure that the colonial masters get the benefit of our land while putting the interest of the Jamaican people at a disadvantage. And that's what they've done. They've given away land that doesn't belong to them. Because guess what? We never gave the government permission to give away our land. There was never a referendum. There was never an election where they went to the Jamaican people and said, could we give away 5 tons of your, well, it's more than 5 tons, right? It would be about 10 tons or more to get 5 tons of the output. So basically, they gave away, remember, bauxite means stripping away the topsoil. The topsoil is what you use to grow. That is the most important piece for growing. That layer at the top, which has all the nutrients and all the biodiversity. Everything is at that top level. So they had to scrape off that top level and dash it wet. And then dig out the interior, going down to our water table, and then ship that out of our country and give the people a token. It's like when you go to a country, you see, when the colonial people go to, let's say, America, and they give some trinkets to the people and take away their lands. That's what they've done to Jamaica. And guess what, Donovan? This is very important, because when the PNP came into power in 1972, they did not stop this. In fact, they continued the process in earnest by opening a 5th refinery in 1973 under Michael Manley. Just so we're clear.
Yeah, we see from the trend that has been happening that between the PNP and JLP, one questions, and it's not even a matter of questioning, it's a matter of evidence that the interests of the Jamaican people were never catered to. in any meaningful way. We have to realize also that when this mining take place, there are other ecological damage. For example, our forestries, our trees, which again,
Donovan, I'm going there, I'm going there, but I want to set up some things first because I want our people to understand, you see, because when we live in a dichotomy of PNP versus GLP.
Yes, the mindset is we're not a lot of us are not liberated from that mindset as well.
And so I want to use this opportunity to make it very clear to the people who are listening, because some are listening with a green lens on, and some are listening with an orange lens on, and some are listening as independent thinkers. Those are the people in the middle, the UIC people, and we need to broaden that middle by helping people to understand that while the GLP was in earnest in the 1950s, remember the first election was called in 1944, and the GLP won that election, and then they alternate every 2 terms with the PNP. By 1973, when Manley was now in power, they still signed new additional agreements and opened new refineries to continue this extraction process. So both are culpable. Now, Jamaica is now exporting some 10 million tons of our land while killing our soil, damaging our air, damaging our water, damaging our farming economy, and damaging the health of our people with every single ton that is extracted. Now, you wanted to make a point about that, Donovan. Continue.
Interestingly, I noticed that Delton Turgot, I hope I'm pronouncing your name properly, sir, mentioned that they asked for intellectual honesty and say on the comment that the land belonged to the crown. That itself, that notion that the lands in Jamaica, predominantly those so-called crown lands, belong to the crown, is part of the deception of stealing away the rights, the liberty, and the opportunity for production and betterment of the people themselves. The fact, as I said in a speech in St. Thomas, Sir Patterson, the fact that our foreparents who were enslaved paid for this by their blood, sweat, and tears by being enslaved. We, the children, the great grandchildren of those persons are the ones that are entitled to this land. And so I want us to get this mindset that somehow by application of some title or some position, we are under this notion that these people have a right to not just rule over us, but to take advantage of us and to abuse us on top of it. They have
Let's summarize it. Let's summarize it. Very straightforward. The land of Jamaica belongs to the Jamaican people.
Exactly.
So any notion of crown land or any notion, I see somebody else here that is trying to make a case. Oral Wallace, who is there trying to, disrupt the flow of discussion, trying to make a case that we're landholders, we're not landowners. Well, here's the fact of the matter. The UIC is bent on making Jamaicans landowners, not landholders. The UIC is bent on making sure that there's no such thing as crown land in the future of Jamaica. The UIC is bent on making sure that every Jamaican becomes a property owner because it is our right to own the property.
That's why I'm a part of the UIC.
Exactly. And the government does not own anything. The government is simply a steward who is supposed to facilitate two things. One, the government must ensure that they protect us from foreign powers, which they're not doing. And two, the government must ensure that they provide a police service to protect us from each other. So I don't kill you and take what you have. That's the two things government should do. And both of them, the government has failed to do.
Yes, that's why we have extortionists. That's why we have extortionists. That's why we have somebody that can walk into my brother's shop and say, we are watching it back and some damn foolishness like that. Because government has failed to provide that protection. But let me not divert. I wanted to go back to the point that we have to look at the impact, the environmental impact that such an activity have. We were talking about the removal of the flora, the trees, right? From the topology of the land, and that disruption in itself leads also to an affectation of our water supply, the quality and quantity of our water supply. there are other things. We know that from the bauxite production, well, aluminum production process, that it does produce certain effluent, certain byproducts that are not amenable to a healthy environment. And we know it is surprising that the bauxite company is in denial and denying culpability,
No, it's not
responsibility.
surprising. It's not surprising. What is surprising is that the government of Jamaica, which is supposed to defend the rights of the Jamaican people, has failed to do so and allowed the bauxite company to get away with what it has gotten away with so far. But let's get a few more points before we move. And I have one more. Well, I have another video for us to watch, but catch this carefully. Farmlands. Well, first of all, the bauxite companies are so far ravishing 5 parishes at an aggressive pace. They're doing it as fast as possible. They're taking up thousands and thousands of hectares of Jamaican land. Remember, I might have told you before, you might have forgotten. I told you this, that Singapore is the size of St. Thomas. Singapore is the size of St. Thomas. It has 6 million people, or 5 million plus people, almost 6 million people.
High population.
And Jamaica has only roughly 3 million, occupying 14 parishes.
Right.
15 times the size of Singapore, which means that we could fit 70 million people into Jamaica. And I know they tell us Jamaica is small to try to fool us, but Jamaica is very big.
I travel the island all the time.
Yeah.
It's not.
So hold on. So what they're doing, while most of us are in the coastal zone of Jamaica,
yes, that's what
and a few of us are scattered throughout the rest of Jamaica, they are busy out of our sight because most people in Kingston do not see what's happening in St. Elizabeth. They don't see what's happening in Clarendon. So this whole idea of bauxite mining is kind of remote to most Jamaicans. It's those who live in and around the areas who are feeling the sufferation or feeling the pain right now. And they know and realize the impact of bauxite mining on their livelihoods, on their health, on their environment. The vast majority of Jamaicans do not realize this. So because they don't realize this now, they don't see how serious it is yet. But I want you to know that right as we speak, 5 parishes are being ravished right now, including St. Elizabeth and Clarendon and Manchester. Now, farmlands have been bought up by these bauxite mining companies, and they're holding these farmlands in reserve. They create out of us on those farmlands temporarily, and at any point in time they can move in and clear off those tenant farmers, wipe them out like you'll see in one of the video, and then begin to extract the bauxite from these lands. What I'm trying to tell you this, my friends, is watch what's going on. So the government has sold or given away or leased away vast swaths of our lands to bauxite companies, lands we don't even know yet are designated to be extracted. Okay? Now, watch me carefully on this. While they're mining, while they're destroying and mining, the Jamaican farmers and the Jamaican people are actually landless. And you have a government to act like a dictator and decide at will, without consulting you, how much of your land they're going to give away to somebody else, and then you pay the price in the quality of your water, the quality of your air, and the quality of your health, and even your economy. Because when they move in and destroy your system, they're taking away your local economy, your fisheries, your shrimp, your water, the water you take from the river to supply your farms, and so on. So your government is busy giving away your right, your wealth, and your health. What do you say about that, Mr.
Which is why, Sir Patterson, personally, on a broader level, I am not interested in a fabricated change as to whether the government wants to move to change from saying we're a constitutional monarchy to saying that we're a republic. I'm not interested, because as modern day educated thinkers, we ought to become more intellectual. When I say intellectual, I don't mean like bookwork. I mean just use our head to realize that we can no longer fall for the fallacy of shallowness, right? You're talking about making a change. Let me give the government a challenge. If you're really interested in moving the country forward. Take back your country. Take back the bauxite industry that is in the hands of these persons. Take back some of these lands. In fact, all of these crown lands,
All of it.
and
Yes.
give it to Jamaican people who are without land. And let me make a comment, because I made this comment on a previous presentation, and someone was rude enough to imply that it's because I probably want some land. The fact is, I own a property that I live on. The fact is, I own other properties, right? As small as it may be, because some of us have a misconception about what wealth is. I am not wealthy, but I do own something. But the point is that I want my piece of the pie, and other Jamaicans are also deserving of it. So I put a challenge to the government: give the people those so-called crown lands, give them their lands. Give the Jamaican people the land.
Yeah, and I can assure you the people are going to have to wait for the UIC to be elected for that. But my next point is the bauxite companies. Remember, Jamaica was the non-producer of bauxite, which meant that millions and millions of dollars should have flowed into Jamaica, because we were the main supplier of bauxite to the world for 5 years straight. We were the main supplier of bauxite, which meant we should have seen a huge inflow of money and massive development in our country. Hold on. Massive development should have happened in our country, like you saw in Singapore. Singapore developed their ports and developed their people, and massive flows came in, and their country looked very rich, and their people are very wealthy. Where did our money go? Where did the money go that they collected over those years? Where is all of this money when Jamaica was the number one? Jamaica is still the 6th largest producer of bauxite in the world. Where is that money?
Perhaps the money went. Yeah. Sorry, Sir Patterson. Perhaps the money went in the same way when I think it was in the 1960s, when the schools were supposed to be built for Jamaican children, to educate Jamaican children, and it ended up lying in the pockets of politicians, and we as Jamaicans sit and accepted that. How long are we going to accept these things, ladies and gentlemen?
So if we ask the right questions, we might begin to start looking for the right answers. Now, look at the conditions. Look at the conditions of the bauxite mining communities. You just take a ride or a drive and go down to all the communities that surround these bauxite facilities. People are living in poverty. After years of bauxite mining in their community, the farmers are poorer. The ground around them is infertile. The people are sick. Their housing is low quality. Their water supply is low quality. And this is the result of bauxite mining in their community. Why would any government want to encourage an industry that leaves the people most immediately impacted poorer than when they were found in the first instance?
Makes no sense. Interestingly, Alan Scott said the money went to Canada and Miami, and we understand, and that's unfortunately how the economy is set up. Where, like, for example, tourism, a lot of the money or the income that is generated from tourism does not benefit the Jamaican people. In fact, I made a blatant error the other day in saying a particular parish was the poorest, when it was in fact St. Ann, being one of the high locations for tourism, is actually the poorest parish. I didn't do my research, and I was quite surprised to find St. Ann being classified as one of the poorest, if not the poorest parish. But we're not talking about that money, ladies and gentlemen, as Scott suggested, that would have been remitted to these owners abroad. What the money that we're talking about is that little portion that should have been benefiting the Jamaican people and not benefiting. We're not seeing the resultant benefit of those funds that should be retained here. That's what we're talking about.
But the government will always tell us, and you'll always hear them come on television and tell you how big and important bauxite mining is, and it contributes so much to our GDP. In fact, over the years, it has continued to decline in its contribution to GDP, while they have been taking more and more of our land. So as they dig out more of our land and kill more of our topsoil and kill more of our ecology and damage more of our water table, the returns have been diminishing, which is quite interesting. But I want to point this out as well. Apart from the fact that all those communities around the bauxite mining towns are still poor, underdeveloped and poverty-stricken. Here's where the problem lies. The government is a part owner in all of those companies. Because the government is a part owner, owning anywhere from 45 to 50% of those companies, they do not have the objectivity that is necessary to be a true regulator. It undermines the government's credibility to be the representative of the people. The government's focus rather, is on the revenue that it will get from the operations, the kickbacks that it will get from the parties involved, and the appearance it will have of doing good by being able to tell the Jamaican people how many jobs they have created. Now these jobs are marginal jobs, because for every job that they create, they have lost some 3 to 4 other jobs and taken away the livelihoods of the farmers and the other persons who would have benefited from those spin-off jobs that the farmers brought. So the fact of the matter is, they're not creating any job. There's a net loss of job. But what they do, they create jobs now that take away our ability to help ourselves. When you go and work for the bauxite company, you lose your indigenous skills. You stop farming, you stop creating, you stop producing, and you focus on being an employee and a dependent on these companies. And they must come and set up clinics for you, and they must come and set up schools for you. And now you're looking, what are they coming to set up for me? As opposed to creating the mindset of us being the owner of our own industries, the producers of our own products, the sellers of our own products, and therefore the masters of our own futures. They have taken away that from the Jamaican people by leading us down this path. So while the reality of what we're seeing in Jamaica from the bauxite industry, the reality is one of destruction of our people and of the future of our children. What do you say to that, sir?
Damian Smith is suggesting that there's a conflict of interest. And yes, the question is that if a government does not seek to do what is necessary to benefit the people, because that's what does government exist for? For the benefit of the people. A government is not legitimate if it does not cater to my benefit. If the government is seen to be anti-people, then it cannot be for the benefit of the people. The government, the people. Then let me put it to us. Even if certain people want to suggest other than I'm saying, if the government does not exist for your preservation, for your well-being, for your empowerment, for your upliftment, you have the right to consider replacing that government. Not even consider, you have the right to replace them because they're not catering to your benefit. I think it was Kuya mentioned us using scientific knowledge. I guess he would probably be thinking about research, right? Scientific evidence to decide how we use our lands, how the use of lands are allocated. I do endorse that position, and I think it was.
Okay, look like you're. Is it me that's frozen, or is it Donovan that's frozen? Who's frozen here? Am I the frozen one? Let me see. Can you hear me? Let me know if you guys can hear me. I think Donovan is frozen. Can you hear me clearly? Anyone? Okay, so Donovan is frozen. So let me just jump back here. So what we've seen from what we've looked at so far, our water source in the cockpit country is under threat. Remember, the cockpit country accounts for 40% of our water supply. So I'm very worried that we might allow this government more time and more latitude to cut off our water supply. I mean, once they damage the water supply in Jamaica, and you realize what that means. You're wiping out the population. You're putting us at risk. Then you're going to talk about climate change. It's not climate change that's the problem. It's bad governance that's the problem. And then we're going to pay the price when you kill off our topsoil, kill off our ecology, and kill off our water. But notice in the film that I showed earlier on that Andrew wants to use the smallest possible area as the designated protected area of the cockpit country. He doesn't want to use the most beneficial dimensions that would give us the widest possible area that would fully protect that zone from any form of impact from this bauxite. He wants to go with the narrowest definition because he has a vested interest in continuing to deceive and rob the Jamaican people. The bottom line is, friends, we cannot trust government. We cannot trust the bauxite company. And we cannot expect that they will do the right thing or that they will protect our interests. Our water, our land, our livelihood, and our lives are at stake. But I want you to see another video where we continue, because this will highlight some other important elements for all of us. So take a look at this, and we shall discuss shortly. I think Donovan is back now, so we can have a chat about that once this is shown. Take a look.
As a quick story, that is the most along each.
Hi. Past years, I'm sure about
Expansion of the fund. There is a here. We make it in permit. And in the aid introduced what you call an environmental performance bond, which is a sum. And there's a breach in any condition of a permit. So the other activities, the other measures, such as court enforcement notices, the agency is now at liberty to draw down on that bond. That's still in train, and our CEO will say more about it once the case files are finalized as to how that's addressed. So there are other options. The option is still there of revoking, suspending the permit, but all of that will have to be addressed at the legal level.
Well, the minister has already given indication that they want to do this drawdown of this fund. What will you do with the money?
And again, as I said, at this point, I can't say much where that is going.
Okay. Well, the minister again.
Notice that he cannot say much about what they're going to do with the money. This is the $117 million environment bond that they're going to draw down now that Windalco has damaged our river, Rio Cobre. They're going to draw down this money now. And this gentleman, who is a part of the regulatory process, is unable to clearly state what they're going to do with that money. Now, it's his job to know, what they're going to do with that money, but he's unable to state clearly. After this, you're going to hear from the young lady, and she will put things in context for you and help you to understand what is really happening here. Take a listen.
Got you. The minister say that we will put in place what is necessary to ensure it happen again. What are you going to do besides allowing them to their construction?
Well, we're hoping that the expansion is what would be the medium-term measure to curtail the problem. But there are also other issues that need to be addressed at the processing level. That is a matter that will be taken up with another stakeholder who has direct for the facility. So in our investigation, there were other things that we have found.
Such as?
As I said, there are other stakeholders who have that responsibility, and I will allow them to speak on that.
Dr. Moody, do you know what the other issues are? Perhaps you could.
So clearly, he doesn't know. He says there are many other issues and there are many other stakeholders, but he can't list the issues and he can't list the stakeholders. He can't answer anything except to give you roundabout answers. And he's the regulator. He is representing the agency that our government used our tax dollars to set up to tell us what's going on and to protect our interests. Now we're going to ask somebody who is not being paid by the government, like myself here and Donovan. We're here sharing with you the realities. We're not being paid by taxpayers, and we're the ones who have to give you the context and help you to understand what is going on. Let's take a listen.
Help us?
No, I don't, but I think that it's important, to note that while we have given Windalco the grace period to conduct, and I say we, NEPA, has given Windalco the grace period to construct, because it doesn't happen overnight, etc. We have what has happened to the people of Kent Village, the people that depend on the Rio Cobre. And NEPA is not only supposed to be saying, it's not only supposed to be responsible for looking at the industries, the manufacturers, the companies, they're supposed to be protecting the rest of the people. They're Jamaica's natural resources and the public health of Jamaica's population. And they have that is something that we have seen, that by allowing by allowing Windalco to continue operating while they're constructing, which is clearly has been, it's slow, as Mr. Nelson has explained, this has been allowed to happen. Instead of allowing them to take their time and acquire land and so forth, we should have considered that if the facility, in case there is heavy rainfall, and what are some of the other measures that should have been put in place to protect the Rio Cobre and to protect the people that depend on the Rio Cobre? Those are things that should have been considered and should be considered right now, because he said the plant is 75% complete in terms of upgrading the size of the effluent pond, so it's not finished. Yeah. And
so Mr. Nelson,
the rainy season.
So, Mr. Nelson, what are you doing to protect the people who depend on the Rio Cobre and people who have to fish in it and get their water from it?
Let me just take this opportunity to correct Dr. Rodriguez. NEPA is not here industry. NEPA is a regulator, an environmental regulator. And we do so by issuing permits and license. Conditions are attached. And we do monitor these companies for the conditions. Whenever we find breaches, we take the necessary enforcement actions to have these breaches remedied. And it varies from enforcement notice, association orders up to court. It all depends on the level of breach. So I can't really agree that NEPA is there for industry. We're here as a regulator.
Yeah, again,
focus on the environment.
Yeah, and she was raising the question about protecting the people who, depend on these, the river, who fish in it. Action has been taken to prevent. Well, you talk about correcting breaches.
I said earlier, our quickest action today was the issuing of the enforcement notice. Whatever other actions that will be taken at this point, I'm not at liberty to say, because our investigations are not yet fully completed. Once that is done, then our files will be presented to the legal department, and then the options, the various options will be looked at.
Hey, how would you like to write jaw-dropping content for all your marketing needs?
Dr. Rodriguez Moody, help us to understand the immediate impact of these chemicals in the Rio Cobre, and long-term impact. If it happens 2019, happens this year, and happens in another 2 years. What or waterway?
Immediate impact is that obviously we can't use the river. We can't use the water. We can't use anything from the river. The fish die, and fisher folk who depend, we have over 40 fishers, I think, that know about that, depend on the river, are not able to fish for their livelihood. And this river supplies water to a large percentage of St. Catherine as well. We're looking at domestic water as well as irrigation water and industrial water. So we have farmers that are also not getting water. We've seen already that the health center in Spanish Town is not able to get water, and they have to truck water, and sections of Spanish Town are not able to get water. Now, the water will eventually clear up as it runs off. It's not a standing body of water. But, fish don't grow back overnight. And the fact is, we don't really understand, you asked about the long-term impact. We don't really understand the long-term impacts in terms of the ecological impacts of this kind of events. Because these chemicals, where are they going? Are they going into the riverbed? Are they being leached in? Are they being captured by organisms? The vegetation on the river, the river does empty into the sea. And yes, we have a dilution factor, but this is very costly chemicals. I don't know any study, and this is correct me if I'm wrong, that really look at that long-term impact of these kind of events on the river. And the ecology. And we have to really be concerned about that, because it's not a one-off situation. As we've just heard, 2019, 2021, 2022, and before that, we're listening. And we really need to be concerned about what is long-term impact.
I hope you're all getting that very carefully. We need to be concerned about the long-term impact of this. And our government is not spending any time or money to properly investigate, document, and communicate this to us. It's all under the hush. They're focused on the top level economy, just to say we're making this amount of money, or the industry brings this amount of foreign exchange to the country. But they're not really scientifically studying carefully in a way that is transparent for us to see. They're not doing that. So we're not aware as to what this means for Jamaica 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, 30 years down the road. What will be the cancer rate? What will be the ability for us to farm? You know, how much of our farmlands would have been damaged? What will be the availability of water and the quality of that water? So there's really a lot going on, and we should not take this lightly. We should really be very, very concerned. But let's continue.
We have just 30 seconds. Mr. Nelson, can you help us? Has NEPA looked into the long-term impact of chemical spills over time on the Rio Cobre?
Not directly, but that is something that we have in train. When we did the performance bond, when we attach a bond, some of that information. There's some information that we use to calculate the bond, which has to do with the natural resources of the river and the impact that it may have. But the very long term, that is what we will have to undertake.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Wow, I hope you just heard that. Basically, there have been no long-term studies done. The performance bond, the $117 million, is their approximation of the money value impact of what just happened. Now, that is incredible, to say the least. Donovan. You're muted, Donovan. Unmute.
I'm sorry about that. So this act by the government agency to draw down on the performance bond reminds me of something I learned in my schoolwork, in my MBA, doing business. And this is how it is. So you have some even large companies, Fortune 500 companies, conglomerates over the world will do it. They make a signal. So they put a posture, or they put a position, and they make a signal to the market or to their opponents. It matters not, well, it does matter, but what they do, whether they are bluffing, whether the signal is genuine or it is real or not, they make this signal with the intent that the market will respond in a certain way. In a sense, I see the act of the government agency just like that. It is like a fallacious act, where by the act of drawing down on this so-called performance bond is to signal to the Jamaican people that yes, we are taking affirmative action to correct the situation. And my position on it is that I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that it doesn't really mean anything much in terms of impact. So it's just like a corporate entity saying that they're going to, they signal that they're buying a piece of land to set up a factory. They had no intention of setting up a factory. They just wanted to send a signal to their competitor that I am here and I'm going to take this action because I am powerful. It doesn't mean that it's going to translate into actual production. Companies do it.
What this means to me, Donovan, what this means to me is that our government places very little value on the Jamaican people.
Yeah,
our government has no care whatsoever about what really happens to the Jamaican people. And that is very evident here. In this clip that we just watched, I could see clearly the regulatory agency is dodgy and is not able to give clear and straightforward answers to the Jamaican people.
The young lady was
cannot say definitively. It cannot say definitively, here is the issue, here's what we have done about it, here's what we're going to do, here are the consequences. It has to be fudging around. The very agency we're paying taxes for is unable to give us clear and unequivocal responses about the issue. But worse than that, the immediate and future impact is not being properly assessed, documented, or communicated. So we, the Jamaican people, are operating in the blind. We have no idea what's going on in our country. We're just living at the mercy of foreign interests coming in because we don't know what they're doing. Our government don't know what they're doing. Our government is not properly tracking what they're doing. It only is only when it becomes very publicly, obvious. So, for example, suppose they were leaking this into the river at a rate at which the fish kill isn't as noticeable. Suppose it was they were doing it a little bit each day in a way that we don't notice, but it's seeping into our groundwater gradually.
Right.
Suppose what they're letting out into the air is such that we're not all feeling it right now. Those close by are feeling it, but the rest of us, it gradually seeps out to us. And
but accumulatively, the effect would be felt later down. Yes.
Absolutely. So later down, you start to see more of us having asthma problem, having skin rashes problem, having heart problem, having cancerous problems. We don't know, we have no idea what the real cause is because we don't have a government. Even though it's taking 900 billion from us a year in taxes, we don't have a government that is carefully analyzing what it is doing to the people or what it's allowing others to do to the people. We don't have a government that cares enough to use our tax dollars to protect us. Its only purpose is to use our tax dollars to see how long it can hang on to power to gain access to our resources. And finally, years later, the people will die of cancer due to pollution of the water, pollution of the land, and pollution of the food. And the government will tell us that they need to tax us and regulate us even more. They're going to regulate us, They're going to lock us down and say they need to protect us from climate change. So they need to take away our rights because they want to protect us from the problem that they created without telling us that they're the ones who have caused it. Now, if we keep this up, Donovan, we will not only lose our land and the soil quality, right? We're also going to lose the ability to recover the same. Because as they create these mud lakes, they're going to gradually take up so much of our land that we're at the point now where we, the Jamaican people, can never have food security, water security, or energy security because they would have wiped out our capacity to do that the longer we allow them to continue. And that is why the UIC is committed to ending mining now and moving to organic farming now.
So essentially, Sir Patterson, the trickle of so-called benefit that is being reaped, to what extent we can say it is being reaped anyway, it does not justify the exorbitant cost that is being imposed upon us now, and we don't know to what calculation into the future. It's not worth it.
Exactly. Now let me show you what that cost look like. This video is going to show you what that cost looks like, and I hope the Jamaican people are watching and paying attention. Let's see exactly how this is impacting us. Just a second. Here we go. I hope you can all see that.
Up first this evening, the livelihood of several farmers operating from the Charlemont Farm Scheme in St. Catherine is under threat. Animals are dying, and this decreased crop yields are just some of the problems. But why? Well, the people point to nearby mining. Kalisha Williams has the details.
Chickens jumping like flies. This one gasped breath died within minutes of this video. When you consider all the factors, this coop located in Charlemont Farm Scheme in St. Catherine is arguably a death trap.
I put in 500, right? And out of that 500 chicken, I killed 320 chicken.
The owner, Sherry MacDonald, believes the problem lies here, a bauxite mining site meters away.
Before, we used to take up like one or one. That's the least. And one finger, if you count, say you get 5 dead chicken, that's enough. I just came here, right? But since them come down there, so I'm gone in hundreds.
Meaning, the mining activities got closer to her farm. So on any given day, as she tends to her flock, she has to make regular trips here, the burial ground. As for For this farmer, Joshua Christian, it's his farm being buried by the bauxite.
A plant like cassava, coconut tree, jack tree, apple trees, pineapple, and others things like. Yeah, just come and push everything away. Push away all of them. And no one come to complain.
Based on our checks, bauxite company Windalco is responsible for mining activities in the area.
They're extending on the mud pan now. So they need some clay to do the extension. They usually, anything going to happen, they usually come in the community and keep a meeting and let us know. Well, this happening now, they don't come and keep no meeting with no one.
The meeting would give you a chance to reap the stuff.
Yeah, exactly. They don't give us that chance.
And it's not just the agricultural impact residents are concerned about. They believe the government has allowed the mining to creep up into their backyard.
This too much. Them a dig way out of scheme. They're actually in the scheme here. This is a road that we drive on. This road this can take you down by Charlemont High School. It takes you to Linstead. It can take you to Ocherias. So this is like a main route and they're actually here.
But not everyone in the community is speaking up. Fear that they may lose their job if they speak out against the bauxite company. As you can see behind me, work is underway and some of the same persons working on this site, they live in this community.
So while the people are happy for the jobs that mining provide, they simply want to be a part of the conversation.
Those lands are sold to the residents by the National Land Agency. So they are not squatters, they are legal landholders. And I think what should be done is for a meeting to be called of all concerned. And we have a discussion to say what is it that can be done.
We tried to get a response from the National Environment and Planning Agency, NEPA, but we were referred to the Mining and Geology Division. When we contacted the division today, we were asked to send an email and a response will be provided soon.
So as usual, the politician is blaming somebody else. That's a politician speaking. The regulatory agency cannot be reached or cannot give clear answers, but we're paying taxes each and every single solitary day for these people taking care of our country. Now, something is grossly wrong here. I mean, terribly wrong. When you cannot depend on either your politician or the regulation agencies that you're paying for. Donovan, give me your thoughts on that.
When I saw that lady speaking, the farmer who is raising her chickens, I must tell us that, you know, it reminds me of growing up with my mother. Well, it's really my aunt who mothered me near Spanish Town, and we were small farmers. And when a household, a family, or a person is raising 500 chickens, you're a small chicken farmer, right? You're not raising 10,000 birds. And when you can lose 2/3 of that amount, or a third, that's a serious impact on the livelihood and well-being of a family that is depending on this means of surviving. It really touched me. I mean, at an emotional level, I'm not afraid or ashamed to tell you that, you know, it really rips my heart to know that this is a way in which people's lives are affected. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to do something about transforming this country, moving this country forward. It cannot continue. We have to do it.
We have to do it very quickly. We have to do it very fast because, as you rightly say, I mean, and that lady and the gentleman speaking, they represent the majority of Jamaicans. The majority of us live on the margin. The majority of us wake up every morning.
That's how we send our children to school. That's how we send ourselves. Yeah, that's how we do it. No, it cannot continue.
I see some things really standing out in this film for me. I see where the bauxite company has more rights than the people of Jamaica. I see that. That's one thing I see very clearly, that the government is there for the bauxite company. They're not there for the people of Jamaica. That's one. I also see that the bauxite company is being allowed to push the people out and take their lands. They're allowed to just go in whichever direction they want and advance on any area of the country that they want to advance on. and the representative of the people are worse. They're like the people. We elected them to represent us, and they come on TV and talk about the problem as if they're not the ones responsible for dealing with it. So I'm worried because the elected councillors, the elected MPs, they point to the regulatory agencies. The regulatory agencies point to somebody else, and the Jamaican people are left at the mercy of these bauxite companies. I also see that they're killing the people's farms and they're killing the people's farm animals. Now, what you're doing, you're taking the people's way of independently providing for themselves and making them dependent for jobs from these multinational companies. So they're turning the people into wage slaves. They're trying to push us back to where we were in the 1930s, 1938, when you have like the sugar riots and so on, where the people were just wage slaves. They weren't able to farm their own cane. They were only able to be the employees of the cane companies. So instead of us Jamaicans owning our lands and planting our cane and processing our sugar and selling it, we were only supposed to be employees at the mercy of the sugar companies. In the same way, let's say we're doing mining. We don't own it and control it and manage it to the best of our interests. We simply allow some companies to come in and then push us off of our land, kill our farming sector, destroy our ecology and water, push us around as they feel like, and we must just go and beg them a job. And guess what? We have to do that now because we'll be victimized if we don't. And Jamaica has always been this basis of victimization. Even now, many persons are afraid to talk out because they don't want to be victimized by a PNP government or a GLP government. They know if they talk up, they're going to lose them job, or they're going to lose contracts, or they're going to be marginalized. Yes, even right now the UIC is being marginalized. As a part, the powers that be say, we're not going to give them the airtime on TV or radio. We're going to block them from it. And they've even been blocking us on social media as well, because they have the power to do so. Anybody who tries to stand up to them, they try to marginalize them. That's why they lock me up. And that's why they'll lock up anybody who truly stand up against them. But you wanted to say something.
Which is why we need the support of each other. We need the support of the persons from the diaspora. I dare say, Sir Patterson and listeners, that we are thankful for the level of support that we are getting, but it should be double, triple time. When we all understand the fight that we're under, when we understand the risk that many of us take to assert ourselves and to present ourselves, it's not because we don't we wouldn't want to resort to the comfort of cocking up our foot and watching some television now. But when you decide to take that risk, we need to understand that we need to band together, because this act of, let me call it this revolutionary act, is not something in which you're going to go down without a fight. These hungry, greedy ones that have, some of them that have this reign of power, will not give it, they don't have the honor to give it up reasonably and respectably. They're not like that. We need the support of each other in order to be victorious, ladies and gentlemen.
Absolutely. If we don't join hands together, I was saying this last night when I did the program on Marcus Garvey, we must join hands together. We may not have a lot of money. None of us now have no heap of money. I'm not rich enough to fund the UIC. I have done my best. You have done your best. You have driven many places using your gas, using your time, using your time you should have been spent working on your contract to make a money. You're working on UIC business. You drive with us all the way out to St. Thomas. You spend time planning, helping to plan the event and so on. We're doing this, free of charge to the Jamaican people. You understand? And it's our time and money. You and I could spend our time to do some business and make some money. We could have joined the GLP and PNP and get some of that corruption money coming our way. Instead, we're spending our time fighting for true transformation of Jamaica. Now, when I watched this video a while ago, three stood out for me, and I'm stuttering because I'm so upset and angry. The people's health are being compromised quietly and yet openly, and we don't have a government representative to stand up for them. The people they elect are there collecting their money and thing for them. I also see this expansion of the bauxite industry in Jamaica over 70 years now is making the people sicker and poorer. Just look at the people in the video. Look at the life. Look at the conditions. Look at what's happening to them. The depression, the stress, the strain, plus the intoxication, or what do you call it now, the poisoning of this thing. And what I'm seeing in all of this, what I'm seeing in all of this, the government has become the enemy of the people. That's what I'm seeing. The government, which is supposed to be the servant of the people, have become the enemy of the people. Very, very, very clear. Take a look. You must see this. This with no uncertainty whatsoever about what's going on.
How was this latest fish kill in Africa?
Very bad. Very bad. Nothing now going now. When it's returned.
So you are not doing anything else?
No.
How soon you think before you can actually catch back another set of crayfish from the river?
Around a year or so 2 years, we then build up. Or if the river come down on that side, we gotta get back some fish. But otherwise, no river come down. Around a year or 2 years before them build up back.
How you going to manage in that 2 years then?
Find some other alternative, you know, to survive. Somewhere, somewhere.
It was healing one day, but when this come back now again, everything just fish rotten off, kill off, dead off, everything. Can't get no fish there, like a little hustling and so eat sometime, sell some, give us some. Then we're there, deal with it.
What are you fearful of?
Just people don't know the damage that might do. You'll fish them so they got life not them like you know. Possibly with something too.
This thing here. No more living in the reader, you have to go to work or do something otherwise. So when this mash up, we don't really have no really options. So you have to sit down today, big Thursday, back to school time, pick up back to school, September. Everything mash up. Right now the fishing can come out next year again for river really come back to something.
So Thursdays normally be a busy day down at the river?
Thursday I want to mean do we go. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Well, of course I'm going to supply today, so it's Thursday here. Yeah, and call them. So he said, no money for this on the weekend. Right now I feel cross, man. Feel cross. I'm not there like upset about it. I'm very upset about this thing, man. Too much time now, too much now. Christian just come here and say yes. Because I'm going to have a good year this year. And here come everything gone back.
So how much of a setback is this for you?
A big setback, you know. Not a big car right now, man. Every time I send my kid to school, set him a man, you know. I'm too soon to go back to school. I'm not. We're not more than what I want to know. I'm going to try to get a work or somewhere to go on or something. You have to go to school. They set them back, man. They set them back big time. I see what I go and carry on, just beat with. They can't just start to go back to school, so we need them now to go to school or anything like that. And it's all over. Our family take care of everybody, we don't take care of family. Season here, I will say that. They're still in our job. We are big now in that work. So I know what we can get out of the game, we help be time being until something come back to the water or what, you know. That give from some, we'll get from what can really go on. What we can get from it. But this is about the poor to this time. Talking about the weather. That makes sense. Who will look out for me now? We're not have to hear from some big guys, you know, what they can do for me.
Well, we born and growing in a village, and just the river we live for. They mashed me up this time, but the first time they mashed me up more. Because we did have some cow when we go buy some cow calf and them drink the water and the whole of them dead. Nothing I do and get.
When was that?
That time in the last, Me have a date last year. Me have a paper when me buy them and everything. And me have all a pot down a river, about 30 pounds. When me store me lobster them in everything there. We affect the wicked, bad. We don't know if it's right or no. Upon the road me there. We need a little help around here, so man. Serious thing. They go on bad for two. Right now, me don't know. Me don't know what to say right now. Either they are river right and now catch fish. We set pot and catch the fish then, store them and sell Thursday, Friday, Saturday. The factory no so nothing for we live off. You see, since the highway make not even sell on the road to that here, so because enough of vehicle them a take the highway. You see, so we are my order crayfish and come and pick up. If you pass here, you see we sell fish every day on the road here. Sometimes she sell it, the main lady they will sell it for we. You see, so we need a little help around here. So. We need a little help.
How has the fish kill affected you now or over the years?
Why? You know, it's a good while the last time I affect we know, come affect we worth, you know. Done it done right, you know. You want to done it done right, you know. So I said 2 nitrate, I not get one. Yeah, you see, some of them going under the river for survival. But we still not going.
So you go up?
Yeah.
So what's the name of the other rivers?
Yeah?
What's the name of the other river?
Rio Cobre.
Rio Cobre.
And
yeah, we have when you come up way down after then call it what? But you have Rio Cobre around that.
and where that come from?
That come from Arkansas.
And you still not
get no fish.
How are you going to survive for the next couple of months?
Well, you know, we have to give thanks and praise. We want to make me survive right now.
No, your net is up now.
Not even a crayfish.
What do you want to be done about the situation? Prevent a reoccurrence.
You know, where man go look over and I go get so I'm going to bring back some more fish. That will take a long time.
Explain what you mean, bring back some more fish.
It means just like a new set of fish in the river. Take a long time, I know the
The people are obviously bewildered. They don't know what to say. They don't know the answer. They're just flying blind. They are absolutely devastated by the latest incident of what they call a fish kill. I hate to use the phrase fish kill because this is not just a fish kill. They're killing human beings. They're killing people's livelihood, and they're literally killing people, even if it's not an immediate drop down and dead kind of situation. If this didn't touch you a while ago, if this didn't move you, if this didn't break your heart, nothing will. Just to look at those people's face, you can see that they're at the border of depression at this stage, not knowing what else to do, where to turn, who to turn to. They don't even know what to call. They call them bigger heads. They don't know what to say. They're at a loss as to what is going on. They don't even understand the system of governance. They don't know what it means. What's the role of a prime minister? What's the role of an MP? What's the role of a councillor? What's the role of NEPA? What's the role of all these whole heap of names them are here and all kind of things? And nothing can go on for them still. Donovan. You're muted, my brother.
Yeah, sorry. As I listen and watch the video, and as I listen to you expressing and reflecting the sentiments of how I feel, I concur that a lot of these ordinary folks, honest, law-abiding, hardworking people, may feel bewildered and helpless. I have an advice for them. If the vultures come to feed them with some of the scrapes that belong to them in the first place, I would say take it. But do not allow yourselves to be absorbed in the deception of thinking that's what you're worth. So let me just be frank about it. A man come to give you $100,000 or whatever to say is, in quotations, pacifying or compensating for the loss. Take it and do whatever you can do with it. But don't let that fool you. What we need is realistic and meaningful change. And that's why the UIC is here. We are not saying that we are perfect. We're not saying that we are perfect people, but we are saying that we are people of integrity. We are saying that we are people of honesty. And we are saying that we are touched with the challenges the Jamaican people face. I'm nearly at tears, you know, because the fact is, had it not been for a little bit of exposure, and even in the so-called educational exposure, I don't want to divert, but you know, some of us are facing it real hard. We're not going to pretend. We don't have any time for any pretension. This country must change. We cannot be allowed to continue like this. We will not allow it to continue like this. And somebody talk on the chat talk about why we talk about vote. Let me tell you why we talk about voting. Because voting is that exercise of the mechanism that we have to peacefully exercise that choice to say that enough is enough and will not allow Jamaica to continue down that path it is now going. I do not want to speak to you concerning the alternative. You understand what I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen? I'm sure some of you do. We're serious.
Yeah, and Donovan, and we also have to point out to them as well, you see, and remind all of ourselves that voting is not even enough, because if you don't have anybody to vote for, your vote don't count. True. So for example, if you wake up tomorrow and there's an election called and you run out there to vote, but on the ballot there's nobody to vote for, then you still don't have the choice. Right now, for the last 78 years, the colonial masters and the PSOJ oligarchs have chosen for you who you can vote for. They have made sure to create an electoral system that only those with money or those who are willing to be controlled by those with money can stand for election within the system that we have and have any hope of being elected. In any electoral process, communication is key. And if you can't communicate, and by communicate I mean if you cannot access the people to share with them your views, then you can't. So for example, on Saturday, we drove all the way to St. Thomas. That's gas. That's time away from work. Okay? Now, if you have $300 million, like the two parties got in the last election from the PSOJ oligarchy, if you have $300 million, that's no problem at all. You can drive many times to St. Thomas.
You can fly too.
You can fly too. You can take helicopter too. You can then drive your nice Prada and then stop and take off your shoes and take a picture that you're walking through the river and say, see me, I go down there, and have the nice optics for those who don't have any real understanding of what's going on. And they see the lovely pictures and they see you in your lovely dress out there clapping and dancing with the people, not knowing that you have been bought and paid for. So when you are out there running up and down, you have been bought and paid for. So what they have done, they put the options in front of you. They're very skillful. They're very bright. And they've allowed us, they've guided us to become very foolish and shallow in our thinking. So we think that it's just you wake up one day and there's just some candidates and you just go and vote. No. The powers that be have bought and paid for the options they're going to present in front of you. We in the UIC have nobody that buy and pay for we except you. If you don't buy and pay for us, if you don't say, I want the UIC to be on the ballot in the next election. So I am going to do 3 things. I'm going to let the UIC know that I care. So I'm going to go on the website and register and say I'm registering as a member, as a supporter, or a donor. So you register. So we know, Mary wants us to be on the ballot. John wants us to be on the ballot. So them went on the website and they registered and said, I am a supporter, a donor, or a member of the UIC. That's number 1. Number 2, they said, listen, I am going to volunteer. If it's even for just call my neighbor and tell them about the UIC. I'm going to volunteer to call people and tell them about the UIC. I'm going to volunteer to share, or whatever. But volunteer, you have to do that, number 2. And number 3, you have to now go and donate even $1,000 a month. Jamaican dollars, that is, which is less than $10 US, but we'll make it $10 for simplicity's sake. So you give $10 US a month, or 1,000 Jamaican dollars a month. Now, there are some people that, why Mr. Patterson have to talk about money? We have to talk about money because without money, we can't drive to St. Thomas.
Right.
Without money, we can't pay for the venue in St. Thomas. Without money, we can't provide lunch for the workers and refreshment in St. Thomas. Without money, we can't print the document and give to nobody in St. Thomas. Without money, we can't hire staff to run offices in St. Thomas. Without money, we will not be on the ballot. It is that simple.
Simple.
And I want tonight to make it very clear for those who think there's a miraculous way for us to be on the ballot without money. There's no miraculous way for us to be on the ballot without money. It is you deciding that I am going to give. And thank God, this week, at least 5 more persons sign up and are giving $25 a month. This week, I saw them. One person signed up and he's giving $100 a month. Another person signed up, he's giving $12.35. I don't know why, but $12.35 a month. I am very happy for every cent. If you sign up and give $1 a month, that is highly respected and highly appreciated. But may I tell the truth? I want you to know. May I talk straight, people? May I talk straight? You will not see the UIC on the ballot if you do not step up and do 3 things. Subscribe on our website as a member, a donor, or a supporter.
Right.
Subscribe on our UIC Liberty TV. Subscribe on our Facebook. Subscribe on our Twitter. Subscribe on our TikTok, whichever one you're on. Go subscribe. And once you subscribe, you are now in the pool of people that motivates us and say to us, we're with you. We're behind you. And then now let us see you sharing, volunteering. Volunteer to help with this, volunteer to help with that, whatever it is. But most importantly, spread the word. And then thirdly, don't forget, no matter how poor you are, you can find $1,000. Because Missy will find it for the hairdo, Missy will find it for go to the dance and the party, Missy will find it for buy little foolishness now and again. So we can find $1,000 to rescue our country. 1,000 Jamaican, that is. If you're in a foreign, $10 US is good. 15 US is good, 25 US is good, 50 is good, or Canadian, or British pound. But I'm being very straight with you tonight. If you do not help us by joining, volunteering, and donating, the UIC cannot be on the ballot tomorrow. But one more point from Mr. Moore before I go to the next and final video.
I endorse that presentation, Sir Patterson. And with the fervor and the firmness that you say it, that's all I can say. That's what we need to do. We just need to get serious about our future.
Absolutely. So now let's take a look at this excerpt, which is going to now talk about, the pros and cons of bauxite sector in Jamaica. And watch carefully how they, let me not say that, just watch carefully. I want you to see what go on. Take a look.
One day a week can't work out for we. We can't do farming.
Have you ever wondered what happens when you pour salt cabbage? The end remedy not
out where I go work. Shop and that kill people too hard. Asthma, everything where they have, sir. That mash up in there. May I tell you? Yeah, man. I tell you about it, mash you up in there. And give you water. Let me tell you something now, sir. And give you water. Last 6 Saturday. On 6 o'clock, by 12 o'clock, you lock you off. And you can't talk to China, man. So I'm sense to go down to the not here for you. Nah, I tell you.
Like when dry time come down, you have a lot of dust blow come over. When dust blow come over, as close as me with it to you, me can't see you. And then something there. And you see when night time come, me don't know what kind of chemical or where they have a release from over there. One night when time me then in my bed asleep. When me smell I was stink something when time me say stink, man, it stink unbearable. So same time me wake up for my boyfriend and me say to him, me say, boy, man, you smell that there's something up and throw disinfectant in a all cut out the scent out of the get a reef from the scent. Me don't know where them a do over there, but master we slowly but dead under them and mine him something at Barsville. Water them polluted with him can get a nice cup of water for drink like a one time. Nothing can go on for we down here so. Not a thing. Just mash up a plant to Kalalu. Say you will get if you yam, you can't get if you eat for wet. When time you wake up in the morning, I be a white dust depending when I know the white one and the red one. So they are gonna do a little farming now. For one bedroom. I go just start burn down, clean that you can do.
So it affects you a lot.
A lot, a whole heap, whole. And when you call and you complain, it don't make no sense because when time they come, then people, by the time you reach up at Alpha, by the time you reach at Alpha, you hear say enough of them just blow, so how affect with them? What is affecting us? They need to do something.
Well, you know, after in the mine, I go and like we used to get the fruits like sweet sap and all these things. Well, the sweet sap them come black. When the mine I go and sweet sap them come black. When no mining, the sweet sap is good. House, zinc, after a while you see it on the floor. But we don't get no comment. Sometimes we go to the community ref where we should represent us and then sometimes when we go there, we have a problem with them. The most say if you go to Mr. Wasit not Chin, and sometimes I go back to Mr. Chin say if you go back to Mr. Witter, that whole story. You find a whole of people with the sinus and all these things that tell us that the mining cause it. So them go to doctor this little thing and come back and we say the dust and sometimes I wonder if our dust or what happened. But you know problem same way as well in our community. You know, from here to Neon to Myersville, go right back round 4 road, come right on Lettuce, right around the little spot. We have that problem.
The mining have devastated the whole environment. From a little boy coming up there, used to have tanks where people get water from to drink, and that is no more for the environment. Have been devastated because, you know, whenever you're mining, it makes a lot of environmental issues. Your dust in this country, and those that have sinus will, you know, truly affect by it.
So indeed, those are the kinds of stories and complaints we've been hearing from residents for decades. In the other side of the coin, over 4,000 persons employed by the industry in 2018, gross earnings of over $1 billion. So how do you balance the two? Dana McCauley, let me start with you if I could, because in fact, in the question and answer that was taking place at the launch of the report, there were one or people who were actually saying, with all these complaints, why don't we just shut down the industry? Is that JET's aim?
I wouldn't say that was our objective. Good evening to you and to your listeners. I should not forget my manners. No, I don't think that was our objective. I think what happened was we were shocked at how little information was available to the public. We've been working on BAUXITE since 2006 and through a series of projects. And we just realized how little information of this kind there was. And because we were working with communities, we heard exactly the same stories you've just heard. But when we tried to find out, yes, of course, the economic benefits are easy to find. But when you try to find out about the economic costs and what are the the efforts to control the dust and what's the situation with the contamination of water tanks, then you really find there is very little information. And that is why we decided to do this study, to cross disciplines. JET does not have all of this expertise, on its staff. So we decided to contract with experts, and that is what we did, to try and find out the truth. If, the people have been complaining for almost the entire 70 years of this industry's history, and the bauxite company's response has tended to be either the one that was said in your clip, it's not our dust, or else it's not harmful. So, okay, they are operating under permits now, what monitoring programs are in place, what is the science saying? That is why we did it. And we were actually prepared if this study had found that in fact the benefits outweigh the cost, those would have been the facts. But that's not what we found.
But can you actually say that's not what you found when all throughout the study, it made the point that data are missing. Data is missing here, data is missing there. Didn't get enough data to be able to come to this conclusion or that conclusion. So can you really come to any definitive conclusion at all?
Well, we did come to a definitive conclusion on the economics, which there's a long list of social costs or externalities, which it really shocked me how little, almost no.
What if you could learn how to draw amazing character designs watching another YouTube?
Effort had been made to even much less quantify these costs. But the author who did that was able to get data from other countries. Bauxite processing and mining happens in other places. And just using two of the externalities, some of their pollution and the social cost of carbon, so the impacts on climate change, the costs for the benefits far outweighed by 3 times or more. And if you were to really be able to quantify all the other costs, that would be orders of magnitude greater. I think it's shocking, Dion.
I'm nearly at the break. I'm nearly at the break, and when I come back, I do want to go to my other guests, but I do need to just follow up on that quickly, because the author did say at the launch that, as you said, he was using data from elsewhere and so on. So again, is it a reach to extrapolate to the Jamaican situation? Are there difficulties in that kind of analysis?
Well, it's not perfect, but the social carbon and the impacts on public health of sulfur dioxide and oxalates is known. It's known. It's not magic. It's known.
So what no?
What no? Well, you better go to break for that. Longer story.
All right. As I said, we have representatives from NEPO. We also have 2 of the authors of the report on the line. I need to say to our viewers, we did invite the Jamaica Bauxite Institute to join us on the program. Initially, we were told that the head wouldn't be available to join us on the program. We offered a pre-recorded interview. We would go to them, but we were then told that no, they still couldn't do the interview because they had to go through the report and they hadn't finished going through the report. So let's go to break, and when we come back, we'll continue.
So it should be very clear to you that we are in serious trouble. If you just listen to what you heard a while ago, the cost outweighs the benefit 3 to 1. And the companies in question were not prepared to give any comment on the document in question. They avoided coming to talk to the Jamaican people on the matter. The more I think about this, a few things jump out at me, Donovan, and I want to just quickly summarize them. So we have seen so far that there's water pollution. For household use in any direction, whether drinking or using otherwise. Mm-hmm. There's land pollution. There's loss of income. People's equipment are being damaged. The tools that they use for their trade is being damaged by the toxicity of whatever is coming out in the air, in the dust, and so on. The possible bad fish being sold on the market. Some people may not have realized this, but if you're killing the fish, some fishermen may not be scrupulous, and they may actually sell you fish that is contaminated because they're trying to make a living. The animals, are drinking the water, and they may not die. Some die, and some die from the air pollution, but not all of them die. Some carry in their body the disease caused by this. Some get sick, of course, and then they pass this on to humans. The rotting fish and dead animals and other dead creatures that you don't even see when the waters are poisoned, those let off all kinds of disease and infection that you may not know. So you may find that people go to the hospital with all kinds of complaints, and we don't know exactly what it is that is the cause. They're sent home, they're given some kind of topical medication, and no clear study, no clear investigation, because clearly we don't have anything in Jamaica that is carefully studying how this is impacting the people. So the government is not there to understand and care for us in that sense, nor can we trust the government with cleanup, because if they're so callous in what they're doing to us in the first place, we can't trust them now to do proper cleanup, to make sure it's effective, to make sure that they truly remedy the situation. And we saw earlier on that we know $117 million in so-called environmental bond from Windalco is not going to be anything nearly enough to solve the problem. But will give the government an opportunity at corruption, because now they get their hands on more money. The regulations and their enforcements are also unclear, confusing, lacks transparency. So people don't know what is really going on. We're perplexed, we're confused, we're depressed. And if you notice, the government was very quick to lock down Jamaicans when the foreign master says lock them down to so-called protect us from spreading. But they're not quick to lock down Windalco, is it? They're not quick to lock down these polluters. They simply tell you that, they need to still investigate. So they're very careful to investigate the problem before they issue any drastic actions against these companies. But they were not careful to study the pandemic and the proposed medication for it. They just quickly enforce it on the people of Jamaica.
That's why I didn't take it.
Now, all of these things, by the way, when coupled together, and the abuse of the Jamaican people and the economic loss that we suffer will drive up crime. It will drive up violence. It will drive up school dropouts. It will drive up mental health disorders. You understand? Which further stresses the healthcare sector. Now, remember, they wanted to lock us down not to stress the healthcare sector. While for 70 years now, they have been allowing things to happen in Jamaica that in fact will drive up the cost of healthcare, drive up the pressure on the healthcare system, because they're literally destroying the Jamaican people by failing to properly regulate and manage the space. In fact, they should not even allow this kind of things to happen. But let me take a break and give you a chance to come in. Go ahead, Donovan.
I'm going to be honest to us, Sir Patterson, and admit that when I came to this discussion, I came from a point of view of looking at bringing some measure of rudimentary understanding to the process, how it is produced, thinking about the necessity of Jamaica's contribution and whether that contribution would have been meaningful. I wasn't convinced of the position that I'm now convinced of. But having explored, looked at the facts, look at the impact on people, I am at a position where I cannot be comfortable with endorsing the continuation of what exists. Can't, right?
No.
And that is how I want us as Jamaicans to raise our level of thinking. I've seen the UIC doing that. We are teaching, we are guiding, we are admonishing, we are encouraging people to think at another level. And what are we asking you to do? We are not asking people to replicate our thoughts. We are asking people to look at the evidence of things. Look at what is before them and applying logics, applying critical thought before you come to a position. So if you choose, for example, to support the UIC, support the UIC because you see that the UIC has a strong position, has a defined direction, has a solid set of plans, not promises, has a solid manifesto, has effective proposals to get the country on the way where it should go. If we're not, if you're a PNP tonight, or you're a JLP, because your grandmother and your grandfather were along that path, and your parents and everybody, and the chicken them in your yard, as some people love to say, and the dog them too. What we're asking you to do is to think rationally. Think about where the country is going. And even some people, as we met some people on the street, Mr. Patterson, would say to you that I'm all right. I don't give a damn. It doesn't matter to me. All I want, for example, one man say to one of our supporters, all I want is the road. If you give me better roads, I'm fine. Because why? I am okay. I'm comfortable. He was a returning resident, by the way, resident.
Yeah.
So he said that as long as I'm all right, to the extent that I can say I'm all right, I'm okay. I don't have no business. Now, is that the way that we want to treat with our fellow men? Let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to say something that may be offensive to some, but I'm going to say, you see, if we want to decrease the amount of gunmen that we have, the amount of high school dropouts, the amount of degenerate youth that may not be following the right path, what we need to do is to show them love and respect. The solution will never be that I am okay, so I don't care. You see that that chicken farmer that was on the video, and we can relate to how some of us grew up, and that is how he's making their living. That's the way we have to learn to empathize, to understand that even if I have pulled up myself by the bootstraps, and even though if I am at a more comfortable position, the fact of the matter is, it's all of us in this together. That's why we have to take a position of unity to put Jamaica from where it is to where we want it to be. That's why we're not affected like that lady or that gentleman that is near the bauxite mining, and I'm in a comfortable posh place. If I am, I still need to empathize and understand that that could have been me, which in the same way, the gunman might not kill your son or kick off your door yet, but don't believe that you are sheltered because of where you are. The fact is, we all need to respond in a way to change Jamaica from what it is right now.
And that is why we want to create one Jamaica, united, strong, and free.
Yes.
The UIC is very committed to that ideology of creating a Jamaica that works for all Jamaicans. And that gentleman who said that he's okay, he's not okay. He has no idea whether or not he has been poisoned by the fish that he has bought somewhere that came from one of those areas. He has no idea to what extent the air pollution has lodged some form of cancerous element in his body, which you'll only find out about sometime in the future. He has no idea what criminal element has been spawned by the destruction of an economy in a community that causes a young man or woman to go the wrong way and end up in his community, at his doorstep, or at his car, or in his company. So we're not okay, no matter how much we think. Even those who are living the sheltered belief that because they're connected to the political arrangement right now that allows them to get special benefits, you're not okay. You still have to live in Jamaica. This is the same Jamaica where your life may be taken, the same Jamaica where your water may be polluted. Yes, you may live in uptown, but the water come from the cockpit country still.
Yes.
And so when that water is polluted and make its way to you, you're dead just the same way.
Right.
So let us be sensible. Let us be wise. So tonight I want to summarize for us here a few things, some key things. 70 years now, we have been having complaints about bauxite mining in Jamaica. Much of it have gone unnoticed because it's just one small news story, and it's covered by many others. But the government of Jamaica continues to exploit the people in order let me put it this way. The government of Jamaica has been working on behalf of the colonial masters and the PSOJ oligarchy. You've heard me say this a million times, but I have to press it because that's the reality. The government of Jamaica is not working for you.
No.
You need to notice the far-reaching effects and complaints of the various kinds of poisoning of humans, their land, and their water that's taking place. Notice that the people feel helpless, hopeless, and desperate but their political representatives are useless. Notice the losses that we're racking up outweighs any of the gains by 3-1, while the people are suffering, while the government is telling us we're gaining from bauxite mining. Notice that the foreign investors and the PSOJ oligarchs are the real owners. They're the real masters. They have replaced the obvious masters that we had in slavery, where you had the great house and the white family living in it, and we were outside and some of us were inside in the house. It's the same thing, but it's now modernized, more sophisticated. And so Andrew Olness and Mark Golding are the Bakra masters. Together with the rest of their entourage, no matter who they are, whether it's the nice sounding Damian Crawford or the sweet looking Lisa Anna or any other member, do not be fooled. The reality is the same. They are the masters and the representatives of the masters, and we are either the house slaves or the what do they call them now? The yard slave, right? Yes. So, and yes, you might be able to drive a car and wear stockings and a high heel or whatever it is, but the bottom line is you're in a master slave economy, and you're either one of those sucking up to the master or you're a slave in the economy. The government of Jamaica has made no effort to identify, define, or quantify the real social and economic cost of bauxite mining on the people of Jamaica. They're not tracking our air, they're not tracking our water, they're not tracking our food, they're not tracking the impact on our income. They're not they just tell us income numbers, but they're not looking at the real losses of the people who are not deriving an income directly from bauxite. They're not looking at the health effects. They're not looking at the long, short, or medium-term impact on the people of Jamaica. All they're looking at is the amount of government revenue they get in order to steal some and use the rest to buy your votes. My people, we need to form, own, and control our own political movement, our own political party. So tonight again, I invite you to join, fund, and volunteer in the UIC and help us to make this party truly the people's party. Help us to continue to be the education party. Help us to be the party that leads Jamaica to true independence, and make sure that never again Jamaica finds itself in the position we now find ourselves in. We have a small window. It's closing by the minute. I pray, I hope, I beg, and I continue to work that we use that opportunity to save Jamaica today. Thank you for your time, Donovan. Thanks to all of you on the live tonight. I implore you, let not this be just another live. This must be a turning point. You have the last word, Donovan, before we go.
Yes, sir, Patterson. I join you in endorsing that message and in saying that the time is now. It is time for us to take that stand. And I'm confident in our people that they will.
Yes. One Jamaica, stronger together. Good night, everyone. Take care. All the best. One Jamaica.